The crowd filled the gym with noise. Shoes squeaked across the polished floor, the scoreboard lights glowed, and chants from both sides echoed like thunder. Michael, a tall black teenager with quick hands and a sharp jump shot, was the heart of his team. Every time he touched the ball, hope surged in his teammates. Every time he moved, the crowd leaned forward. But there was a shadow in the game that night. The referee. A white man named Mark, with a hard stare and a whistle that seemed to sleep when Michael was fouled. The other team pushed, shoved, even elbowed him. The whistle stayed silent. Michael glanced at his coach, who threw his hands up in anger, yelling, "Call it! That's a foul!" But Mark's eyes slid away, pretending not to hear. The crowd shouted, some booing, some laughing. Michael tightened his jaw. He would not back down. Not tonight. The ball came his way again. He dribbled, spun, and leapt. A defender slammed into him midair. His body twisted, his knee screamed, and he crashed to the floor. The whistle shrieked, but too late. Not to protect. Not to save. Only to end the play. And then the gym went silent. Pain burned through Michael's leg as he clutched his knee. His teammates rushed over, their faces pale with worry. The coach bent down, voice trembling, "Don't move, Michael. Stay still." The crowd's noise shifted, confusion mixing with anger. Some shouted at the referee, "Why didn't you call it earlier?" Others jeered, saying Michael was too soft, that he should toughen up. Michael looked up through the blur of sweat and tears. His chest rose and fell like a hammer. He wanted to scream, but no sound came out. All he heard was the ringing silence after the whistle. The referee stood frozen, his whistle dangling from his lips. No apology. No guilt. Just cold silence. Stretcher bearers came in, lifting Michael gently. As they carried him off the court, he clenched his fists. His dream of finishing the season, of leading his team to victory, was slipping away. And deep down, he knew this wasn't just an accident. It was neglect. It was injustice. And it cut deeper than the pain in his knee. The hospital smelled like medicine and sadness. Machines beeped in soft rhythms as Michael lay in the bed, his leg wrapped in bandages. His mother, a strong woman with tired eyes, sat beside him, holding his hand. "Why didn't they protect you?" she whispered, more to herself than to him. "Why didn't they stop it?" Michael stared at the ceiling. His mind replayed the hit over and over, the sound of the body crashing into him, the delayed whistle, the silence afterward. It felt like a wound that wasn't only in his knee, it was in his soul. His coach visited, his voice heavy with regret. "You were the best out there, Michael. But sometimes the game isn't fair." Michael turned his head sharply. "Not fair." His voice cracked. "It wasn't just unfair. He ignored me. Every time I got hit. Every single time. He didn't see me." The coach looked down, unable to answer. That night, when the room went dark and only the moonlight brushed his bandaged leg, Michael whispered into the silence, "I will not be invisible. Not anymore." The weeks dragged like chains. Michael struggled with crutches, learning how to move without breaking down. His teammates visited, bringing laughter and stories from the court, but their smiles carried guilt. They knew they needed him. They knew the game wasn't the same. One evening, his friend James leaned close and said, "Man, when you fell, it felt like all of us fell. But you're gonna get back up." "I know it." Michael wanted to believe. But deep down, fear gnawed at him. What if his knee never healed? What if the referee's silence had ended his dream for good? He began writing in a notebook, pouring his anger into words. Page after page filled with the same thought, why didn't the whistle protect me? One night, his mother read over his shoulder. She didn't scold or comfort. She simply said, "Then you must make sure the next whistle is heard." Michael sat back, the words digging deep inside. Maybe his fight wasn't just about basketball anymore. Maybe it was about something bigger. The day of his first therapy session, Michael limped into the rehab center with determination burning in his eyes. The trainer pushed him hard, testing his strength, testing his patience. Sweat dripped down his face as he struggled to bend, to stretch, to balance. Every step hurt, but every step was a small victory. Don't give up, the trainer urged. Pain means progress. Michael gritted his teeth. He remembered the referee's silence, the laughter of some in the crowd, the ache in his mother's voice. That memory fueled him. Days turned into weeks. His body slowly grew stronger. He could walk without crutches. He could jog. The first time he touched a basketball again, his hands trembled. The sound of the bounce echoed in the gym, filling him with both joy and sorrow. He shot the ball. It rolled around the rim and fell through the net. Tears welled in his eyes. Not because he was healed, but because he knew the game still lived inside him. And he wasn't done yet. Michael returned to the sidelines of his team's practice one afternoon. His knee was still not ready for full play, but he carried his notebook under his arm. The gym smelled of sweat and rubber, the sound of bouncing balls filling the air. His teammates were thrilled to see him. "Michael!" James shouted, throwing him a ball. Michael caught it but didn't shoot. Instead, he tucked it under his arm and walked to the center of the court. Everyone stopped dribbling, their eyes on him. "I need to say something," Michael began, his voice steady. "What happened that night, when I got fouled and nobody called it, that wasn't just about me. That was about us. If they can ignore me, they can ignore any of us. But I'm not going to stay silent. I'm going to fight. Not just to play again, but to make sure every whistle counts." The gym grew quiet. His teammates nodded, some clapping softly. Coach wiped his eyes when he thought no one was watching. For the first time, Michael felt the silence after the whistle was breaking. And this time, he was the one breaking it. A week later, the school principal called Michael into his office. The man's suit looked stiff, his desk lined with trophies. "Michael," he said carefully, "I heard about your speech to the team. I also heard you've been writing." Michael clutched his notebook tighter. "Yes, sir." The principal leaned forward. "Would you consider speaking at the middle school assembly next week? These kids look up to athletes. They need to hear about fairness, resilience, and courage." Michael's heart raced. Speak? In front of hundreds of students. He had never thought of himself that way. He wanted to play, not talk. But his mother's words echoed, "You must make sure the next whistle is heard." He nodded slowly. "I'll do it." As he walked out of the office, the notebook felt heavier in his hands. Not because of the words inside, but because of the weight of responsibility. Could he really turn his pain into power? He wasn't sure. But he was about to find out. The gymnasium buzzed with restless energy the day of the assembly. Rows of young faces filled the bleachers, whispering and laughing. Teachers tried to quiet them, but the noise grew like a storm. Michael stood behind the curtain, knees shaking, not just the injured one. He could hear his name being introduced. "This is a student who has shown strength and courage, both on and off the court. Please welcome Michael Johnson." The applause hit him like a wave. He walked out slowly, clutching his notebook. The microphone stood tall, waiting. His mouth went dry. For a second, he froze. The silence after the applause felt exactly like the silence after the whistle. Empty. Heavy. Terrifying. Then he opened his notebook, looked at the first line he had written weeks ago, "Why didn't the whistle protect me?" He looked up at the kids and said, "Sometimes, the whistle doesn't blow when it should. Sometimes people don't protect you, even when they're supposed to. That happened to me. But I want to tell you what I did next." The crowd leaned forward. He had them now. Michael spoke for 15 minutes, but it felt like only 5. He told them about the night he was fouled, about the silence that followed, about the pain and the anger. He told them about the rehab, the sweat, the fear, and the notebook where he poured out his thoughts. But most of all, he said, his voice strong now, I want you to remember this: when someone ignores what's fair, when someone refuses to see you, you cannot stay silent. You must stand up. You must fight, not with fists, but with truth. The students clapped loudly. Some even stood up, cheering his name. The teacher's eyes glistened with pride. As Michael walked off the stage, James slapped his back. Man, you just lit a fire in there. Michael smiled, for the first time in months without pain behind it. Maybe he wasn't just a player anymore. Maybe he was something bigger. Word spread quickly. Teachers from other schools called the principal, asking if Michael could speak to their students too. Soon, his schedule filled with visits. Each time, the nerves returned, but so did the fire. At one school, a little girl raised her hand after his talk. What if the whistle never blows? She asked softly. Michael knelt so he could meet her eyes. Then you become the whistle, he said. You speak. You shout. You make sure people hear what's right. The girl smiled shyly, and Michael knew she would never forget those words. Neither would he. But the more schools he visited, the more he realized this was bigger than basketball, bigger than one bad referee. He was no longer just telling his story, he was telling the story of every kid who had been ignored, overlooked, or treated unfairly. And the silence after the whistle was beginning to turn into a roar. Not everyone liked it. One evening after a speech, Michael stepped outside to find a man leaning against the wall, arms crossed. It was Mark, the referee. His face was tight, his eyes narrow. You think you're some kind of hero now? Mark sneered. All because of one game? You're making me look bad. Michael's chest tightened, but he stood tall. You made yourself look bad when you ignored the fouls. Mark's jaw clenched. You don't know what pressure I was under. The crowd, the coaches, the players. Sometimes you miss things. Michael's voice rose. You didn't miss them. You chose not to see them. The air grew heavy between them. For a moment, Michael thought Mark might lash out. But instead, the man spat on the ground and walked away. Michael's hand shook, but he didn't back down. He knew then, his fight wasn't over. It was just beginning. The season ended without Michael returning to the court. His team lost in the playoffs, and though it hurt, he didn't feel broken. He had found another court, one where his words were the ball, his voice the shot, and his courage the defense. But one night, as he sat alone in his room, he picked up the basketball that had been gathering dust. He spun it slowly in his hands. The love of the game was still there. The dream hadn't died. He whispered to himself, I'll play again. And this time, I'll play stronger. Not just for me, but for everyone who needs the whistle to be heard. Outside, the city lights blinked like stars. Inside, Michael's fire burned brighter than ever. The silence after the whistle had once crushed him. Now, it was the silence he had sworn to break. And he wasn't done yet. Michael's knee grew stronger with time. The long hours of therapy, sweat, and quiet determination paid off. He was never quite the same player physically, but in spirit, he was something greater. On the day of his final high school game, the crowd cheered louder than ever. Michael suited up, his jersey gleaming under the lights. When he stepped onto the court, the sound was deafening. The ball came to him. He dribbled once, twice, then pulled up for a jump shot. The ball sailed through the air, kissed the rim, and dropped clean through the net. The crowd exploded. Michael smiled, not because of the points, but because of the journey. After the game, he stood at center court, microphone in hand. Basketball taught me to fight. Life taught me to stand. And now I know, when the whistle stays silent, we can't. We must speak. We must rise. We must protect each other. The students, parents, and players rose to their feet, clapping and cheering. His teammates lifted him high on their shoulders, carrying him like a champion. And in that moment, Michael understood his story wasn't just about the silence after one whistle. It was about making sure every silence was broken, every voice heard. The gym shook with joy. His mother wept with pride. Michael looked around at the faces glowing with hope and thought to himself, "This is only the beginning."